Ever questioned why scoping an engagement is fundamental in pen testing? Well, it's like setting the stage for a play. If you don't know what you're performing, how can you prepare? Without proper scoping, you run the risk of inadequate coverage, leaving parts of your systems vulnerable to cyber attacks. Additionally, poorly defined scopes can lead to overrun budgets. Just imagine spending endless hours and resources on areas that aren't critical while missing the ones that are. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, except the needle is a security vulnerability, and the haystack is your network. And let's not forget, the main aim of pen testing is to identify key security vulnerabilities. If these are missed due to improper scoping, then the whole exercise becomes futile. So it's clear that scoping is not just a preparatory step, but a crucial part of effective pen testing. Now that we've established the importance, let's delve into the process of scoping an engagement in pen testing. The first step in scoping a pen test engagement is understanding the client's objectives. A pen tester should dive deep into the client's business, like a detective on a mission. What is their industry? What are their operations? What are their key assets? Dig into their desired outcomes. Is it compliance-driven? Or maybe they're looking to fortify their defenses against a specific threat. Understanding risk tolerance is just as crucial. Some clients may be risk-averse, seeking to fortify their systems to the maximum extent. Others might be more comfortable with a certain level of risk, focusing more on cost-effectiveness. The defined objectives are the compass that guides the pen test. They're the foundation upon which the engagement scope is built. The more insight you have into these objectives, the more effective the pen test will be. Remember, a pen test is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a tailored suit, cut precisely to fit the client's unique needs. Once the objectives are clear, it's time to move on to the next step, defining the scope of the engagement. Defining the scope of the engagement is the next crucial step. This stage is where we decide what systems, networks, or applications will be put under the microscope. It's akin to setting the stage for a play, where each actor, prop, and backdrop is meticulously chosen to contribute to the narrative. The depth of the testing is another integral part of this step. It's about deciding how deep we want to dive into the system's architecture. Are we just skimming the surface, or are we going full Fathom 5 to uncover every potential vulnerability? Then, there are limitations and restrictions to consider. Perhaps there are parts of the system that are off-limits, or maybe there's a time constraint that we need to respect. Whatever the case, it's imperative that these boundaries are clearly defined and agreed upon with the client. Remember, a well-defined scope not only sets expectations, but also guides the entire pen testing process, ensuring we stay on track and on target. With the scope defined, we can now proceed to the next step, planning the engagement. The third step in scoping a pen test engagement is planning. Picture this as charting a course, like a captain on uncharted waters. There are various factors you need to take into account. First, consider timing. When will the pen test be most effective and least disruptive? This could be during a low traffic period or after business hours. Next, take stock of your resources. How many people will be involved? What tools and techniques will you employ? Remember, the quality of your arsenal is as important as quantity. Moving on, anticipate potential disruptions to the client's operations. A pen test, while necessary, could disrupt business continuity if not properly managed. So think about how you can minimize this impact. Lastly, remember that the devil is in the details. A detailed plan can be the difference between a successful pen test and a failed one. It's like a roadmap, guiding you through the process, helping prevent unforeseen hiccups. A well-prepared plan sets the stage for the next step, executing the pen test. The fourth step in scoping a pen test engagement is the execution of the pen test itself. This is where all the planning and scoping we've discussed comes into play. It's time to put those strategies into action, carefully following the agreed-upon scope and plan. Remember, the aim is to identify vulnerabilities and test the robustness of the client's system, not to cause unnecessary disruption. So, it's crucial to stick to the plan and respect the boundaries we've established. But what if you encounter a scenario that wasn't anticipated? Or what if a potential vulnerability lies just outside the defined scope? In such cases, it's essential to communicate with the client. Explain the situation, outline the potential risks and benefits, and get agreement before deviating from the plan. This approach ensures transparency and maintains trust, while still allowing you to be thorough in your pen testing. Execution is vital, but it's not the end. There's one more step: reviewing the engagement. The final step in scoping a pen test engagement is the review. This phase is crucially important as it's where we assess the effectiveness of the entire process. It's not just about checking off boxes, it's about learning and improving. Let's think about it this way. Just like a chef tastes their dish before serving, you need to review your engagement to ensure it meets its objectives. Did we achieve what we set out to do? This is the time to ask ourselves that question. But it doesn't end there. We also evaluate how effective the pen test was. This helps us understand if our strategies and methods were successful or if they need tweaking. Lastly, we identify areas for improvement. No process is perfect, and there's always room for growth. Were there any oversights? Any missed opportunities? We need to find them, learn from them, and use them to improve future engagements. The review completes the scoping process, ensuring that the pen test provides value to the client. So, how do you scope an engagement in pen testing? Let's recap the key points discussed in this video. First, it all starts with understanding the client's objectives. This means knowing what they want to achieve from the pen test and aligning your strategies accordingly. Next, we move on to defining the scope of the engagement. Here's where you lay out the systems to be tested, the extent of the testing, and any boundaries or limitations. This step is crucial to ensure that both parties are on the same page. The third step is planning the engagement. This involves creating a detailed plan, including the techniques and tools to be used, the timeline, and the personnel involved. Then comes executing the pen test. This is where all the planning and preparation come to life. Finally, reviewing the engagement. This includes analyzing the results, creating a report, and discussing the findings with the client. Remember, proper scoping is essential for a successful pen test. It ensures that the pen test is effective, efficient, and valuable to the client.